All right, hey, Jason Julius here, and in this video, I want to talk to you about a very simple, fun, playful way to initiate touch on the first date. I think this is probably one of the biggest sticking points for a lot of guys. I know this was a big sticking point for myself. Going out on dates, you get to that point where you're having a great time, you're having a great conversation, but as the guy who should be the leader of the interaction, how do you cross that barrier? You know, your mind is like, things are going so well, I don't know if I want to screw things up. And of course you want to get that first kiss, but how do you get to that first kiss without initially having that level of touch? And so the first thing to think about on your first date is the logistics of it. You know, if you can, it's best to be seated close by your date so that, you know, if you're in a corner booth, she can be close enough to where you could reach out and, you know, make little gestures, or, you know, she's, you know, getting out of hand, you could kind of just be like, you're getting too big of a head here. And like, you know, kind of just give her like that little tease, and that kind of starts that level of touch. You know, it's not that weird, awkward, she's on that far side of the table. You know, you want to like reach out, but you can't. And so this little thing I came across by accident. I was reading an article online, and I mentioned this during a date where she was seated super far away from me. And I was like, this worked fantastically. And I've used it a number of times since. I've shared it with some friends. They love it. I think it's really cool. So here's what it is. So guys, first what I want you to do is I want you to hold either of your hands in front of you. And what you're going to notice is, as a man, your ring finger is longer than your index finger. And the reason for that is that you have higher testosterone than women do. And so men typically have a longer ring finger than index finger. But for women, it varies. If women are higher in estrogen, they have a longer index finger. If they're higher in testosterone, they're going to have a longer ring finger. So what I'll usually do is, you know, things are going really well and I want to initiate that touch. I'll just be like, something will come up and be like, hey, that reminds me, would you consider yourself more of a girly girl or, you know, more of a sporty girl? And, you know, she'll typically give you the answer and things like that. Be like, well, let me check. And so what you do is you just kind of reach out. So you can reach across the table, and this gives you a very nice excuse to be able to reach out and take her hands. And what I'll typically do is be like, just kind of observe for a little bit and be like, that's interesting. You know, and she's like, what? Sometimes she'll get really self-conscious, or she's like, oh, are you checking out my nails and things like that, you know, but what you're really looking for is you're looking to see legitimately, is her ring finger longer or shorter than her index finger? And then you know, say she said, oh, I'm probably more of a sporty person, and her index or her ring finger is a little bit longer. Well, then that kind of matches up and be like, yeah, actually you can kind of explain it to her. And what I like to do, which is kind of a little bit sneaky, is while I'm explaining it to her, just kind of rub my finger across here, you know, just kind of, it just initiates that whole touch, but you're having a fun time and you're kind of explaining something to her about herself that is really fun. So sometimes she'll be like, oh, I'm more of a girly girl, but her finger says different. Be like, well, actually it looks like you're a little bit more sporty. And, you know, usually, you know, that brings up some fun conversation of like, oh, no, I'm not, or whatever. I'll usually tease and be like, no, it looks like you're more of a girly girl. You probably like to shop a little bit more than other girls do. And she's like, no, you know, it just brings up that fun dynamic. But here, as you can see, I've been holding her hand the entire time. I would do this same thing during the date. I would continue talking and explaining. And now this whole time I get to hold her hand. And what I'll usually end with is and you know what that also means. And this doesn't matter if what finger is longer than the other. She has higher estrogen, higher testosterone. I'm usually like, you know what that usually means, or what that actually means is you have a high sex drive. And usually that gets a good giggle, but it creates that sexual tone, that sexual dynamic, where, you know, before she was across the table, here you're having this conversation, you're closer, you're touching, and then I'll usually loosely kind of keep holding onto her hand and just keep talking. I don't hold it and be like, don't pull your hand away, but it's usually you hold her onto her hand for a little while, and it gives you this cute way of just holding hands across the table. And eventually, you know, she'll pull her hand away, you'll pull your hand away. But what that really does is it creates sets the frame, I should say, for later on, for when you do say move over to her side of the table, or you take her somewhere, you can take her hand without, you know, it being awkward. And, you know, it's not the first time you guys have touched, or if you go in later, you pull her in for a kiss. It is so much smoother because you've already established that touch. You've already kind of given that, that relief. And I can't tell you how many times I've been out on a date and done this. And afterwards she's like, wow, it was so cute how you held my hands during dinner. And oftentimes she doesn't even remember what it was we were talking about, but it just creates this really fun way to be able to hold hands across the table without, you know, having to run over there or just, you know, be awkward about it. It's just a fun little thing. She gets to learn something about herself. You get to learn something about her. You get to tease her a little bit and have a lot of fun with it. So go try it out and let me know what you think. Hey guys, real quick before you go, if you like the content in this video, go ahead and hit the like button below and make sure and leave a comment and let me know what you think and ask any questions that you might have. And also don't forget to hit the subscribe button because I have some really cool content planned. I'm going to be coming out with videos weekly and I don't want you to miss a thing. So thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.